In every small town, there are secrets buried deep in the shadows, secrets that refuse to stay hidden forever. Ravenwood was no different. On a rainy night, a brutal murder shattered its silence, and one detective would risk everything to uncover the truth. But sometimes, the truth is deadlier than the lie. The storm rolled over Ashfield like a tired animal, shaking itself off in cold sheets of rain. Detective Mara Doyle eased her state, issued charger along County Road 9, wipers slashing a steady metronome against the windshield. She'd been in Ohio for 10 months. Long enough to know the county's roads by smell, diesel and fertilizer in spring, damp leaves in fall, the metallic bite of salt in winter. Tonight it was wet asphalt and pine. She'd left Chicago after a career that ended in a courtroom she still saw whenever she closed her eyes. Ashfield was supposed to be a quieter second act. It was not cooperating. The radio crackled to life. Unit 12, we've got a single. Vehicle rollover at mile 211, right off the frontage. Caller says there's smoke. Possible fire. The dispatcher's voice carried that strained, careful calm that meant things were worse than the words admitted. Copy, Mara said, feeling the familiar clutch release in her chest as the work took over. ETA 6. She crested a rise and saw the hazard. Strobes first, a tow truck angled on the shoulder, a volunteer firefighter's pickup pulled half into the ditch, and the broken geometry of a compact SUV on its roof with one wheel slowly spinning. The engine compartment coughed steam. A figure in a reflective rain jacket waved Mara in. We cut the battery, he called. No fire yet. Mara ducked under the crumpled door frame. The driver, female mid-30s, hung awkwardly in the inverted seat, held by a seatbelt that had done its best. Her neck was at a wrong angle that made Mara's stomach dip. A purse, its leather dark with rain, lay in footwell amid glass glitter. Mara worked the buckle free and eased the body down with the firefighter's help. Under the strobe bloom and rain, the woman's face resolved into someone Mara recognized. Carly Baines, Civic Committee regular. PTA reminders on the bulletin board, a reliable smile in grocery lines. Ashfield's favorite neighbor. The radio murmured again. EMS is 3 minutes out. The dispatch said, make it 1. Mara muttered, more to herself than anyone, because the math was ugly. She glanced into the back seat. A child's booster, empty. Anyone else? She asked the firefighter. Caller said no. He answered, saw it as it happened. Said the car fishtailed, clipped the guardrail, rolled. Mara looked at the guardrail. It wore a clean, bright scar where the car had kissed it, but there was something else, a smear of black rubber that veered strangely, as if a second vehicle had swerved sharp and late. She walked the arc with her flashlight, rain pecking at her hood, until the beam picked up a scatter of small, pale shapes at the shoulder. She crouched. Porcelain, shards from a mug, glazed navy with a white anchor harbor diner. A place in town where the coffee was strong enough to resurrect the dead. A paramedic slid beside her. Hey, detective, he said. Noah Fieger, Oa, tall and steady, Ashfield-born and stubbornly staying. You know her. Everyone knows her, Mara said, standing, rain sluicing off the bill of her cap. She organized the school supply drive last month. Noah's jaw worked. We'll take her in coroner'll pronounce. He glanced at the booster. Kid. Not here, Amara said. Maybe home. Maybe with Dad. Dad's been out of the picture. Noah said softly. That's what folks say. Mara took a long breath. The road hummed with rain. She walked past the point of impact, tracing the second set of scuffs until they simply disappeared. No debris. No paint transfer on the guardrail beyond. The initial scrape, a ghost lane, she turned back toward the tow truck. The driver was watching too closely. His jacket carried the logo Rourke and Sons Towing, the only tow outfit in 3 townships, run by a man whose handshake appeared in campaign photos. Mara stepped under the tow rig's awning. You first on scene? She asked. The driver's eyes skipped once toward the ditch before settling on hers. Yeah, I was heading back from a call out on Lenhart. Saw her roll, called it in. What you see before the roll? Nothing. Wet road, hydroplane. Mara nodded, like she was accepting it, and watched the way relief combed his shoulders. What's your name? Evan, he said. Evan Rourke, as in the son of Cal Rourke, county commissioner, as in the donor board over the new Little League diamond. Mara filed that quietly and crouched beside the wreck again, on the inside of the windshield, near where the rear view mirror had once been. A faint framed rectangle showed clean glass in a world of mist and grime. A suction cup had been there, a dash camera mount. The camera itself was nowhere. Noah's partner called from the gurney. "We're rolling." "Hold up," Mara said. She slid the purse toward herself with 2 fingers and fished inside. Wallet. Carly's phone, a folded handout about neighborhood watch sign-ups for the group that met in the library on Wednesdays, and a keychain, house key, mailbox key, a plastic fob with the logo of a storage facility out by the highway, and a tiny metal charm etched with coordinates 40, 2001, 185 degrees N 82, 7,152 degrees W. No one carries coordinates by accident. Mara stood in the rain while the ambulance doors thumped shut. She looked down the black ribbon of County Road 9 toward town, where porch lights made blurry constellations. In Ashfield, bad things weren't supposed to happen randomly. When they happened on purpose, sanded down and painted over to look like accidents. She keyed her mic. "Dispatch, this is Doyle. Secure the crash site and hold the tow until forensics can sweep it." A beat of silence. Detective, Sheriff Decker says we can release the vehicle once. Tell the sheriff if I said hold, Mara said, voice level. When she clicked off, the tow driver's friendliness had receded behind a cooler expression. "Sheriff runs this county," Evans said, almost conversational. "Tonight the road does," she replied. Then she bent again and found one more thing, halves, wallowed by mud. A new penny, bright as a wound, pressed heads up into the dirt. A useless detail, unless someone wanted to mark the place they'd been. Mara slid the penny into an evidence bag and felt the storm rearrange itself around her. The rain kept falling, and somewhere beyond the washed-out fields, a set of coordinates waited in the dark like a dare. Ashfield slept in neat grids, the storage facility Carly's fob belonged to squatted at the edge of town in a new development with an old name, Sugar Maple Self-Storage. The keypad accepted the fob with a cheerful chirp. Floodlights made the rain look like flung needles. Rows of doors rolled away in muted green, each with a stamped number and a corrugation pattern that gave the illusion of movement if you stared too long. Unit B 114 trembled open beneath Mara's hand. Inside, stacked bankers' boxes labeled in tidy print, a folding table, a blue plastic bin of toys, and a metal filing cabinet that still smelled like factory paint. It was the sort of unit a person kept when they were between houses and between decisions. Mara rifled the boxes. PTA flyers, committee minutes, 3 off, brand first aid kits and a portable printer. In the filing cabinet, grant applications for playground resurfacing, invoices, and a folder marked Neighbors Watch Ashfield. She flipped it open. The group's roster included half the town's popular names: Janelle Price, local reporter, Pastor Albee, Sheriff Hank Decker in an advisor capacity, and Calvin Rourke as community liaison. At the back of the folder, a small envelope yielded a memory card. Mara pocketed it and kept going. On the underside of the folding table, her flashlight caught a strip of duct tape that wasn't quite flush. She peeled it back. Another memory card, this one labeled in block marker, MM2, 111 West, mile marker 2, 111, the crash site. She closed her eyes for a moment, palm against cool metal. Someone had been watching the road. Someone had expected to need the record. At the precinct, the IT room was a converted janitor's closet with a disgruntled window. Tessa NG, the department's one, woman's cyber unit by grace of an internship that had turned into a full-time job, pushed aside a half-empty bag of pretzels to make room on her desk. "What you got?" Mara handed her the 2 cards from Carly Baines. Dash cam, maybe. Or a trail cam. Tessa slid the first card into a reader and spun her chair with a little squeak. Neighbors Watch. She read from the directory. They've got a whole kit. Doorbell cams, road cams, porch mics. All voluntary, she added, peering over the monitor, but when you connect them to a central hub and stick keywords on them, you can build a city that tattles, Amara said. Tessa pulled up a video. It was the crash scene in black and white infrared time, stamped less than an hour earlier. View came from a low angle, probably mounted to a signpost. Rain hissed in silver threads. Carly's SUV eased into frame, headlights behind her, another car sliding in the wake. As the SUV drifted toward the guardrail, the following car surged, nudged the SUV back quarter with the kind of intimacy that only practice provides, and ghosted away into rain. The SUV rolled twice, kissed the rail and settled, and the following car became a phantom. No plate the camera could read, no distinguishing mark beyond a missing passenger. Side fog light, leaving only a stuttering bright hole where a beam should have been. Clip 2, Tessa said quietly. The angle changed, this camera higher, more distant. The following car paused just beyond the wreck for the length of a single breath, as if sniffing the wind, then accelerated and vanished toward town. The pause left a reflection in a puddle. A badge of light shaped like a lowercase r, it winked and was gone. Could be a broken letter on a dealership plate frame, Tessa said. Could also be a manufacturer's logo. Rourke, Mara said before she'd thought it through. The tow company logo had a stylized R, chrome and smug. She pulled up other cards' contents. It wasn't video. It was a directory of stills, porch camera shots of boxes delivered, neighbors walking dogs, the small acts that made up a day. Interleaved were images of vehicles parked outside a freestanding garage on the south side of town. Rourke and Sons Annex, if Mara remembered the zoning map correctly. In several photos, with date stamps that lined up with days, a car mysteriously burned in Ashfield. A dark sedan idled nosing by the bay doors. Its passenger fog light was a blind eye. She printed 6 frames and slid them into a manila folder. Who else has access to this network? She asked Tessa. Whoever runs Neighbors Watch and whoever they share it with. Tessa said, they're using a cheap cloud management portal. I can't pull user lists without a warrant, but if you want a public face, she tapped keys, Facebook group, 3,000 members. Weekly library meetings. Sign-ups run through a Gmail with Carly's name attached, but look here. She pointed to the moderators list, Janelle Price, Cal Rourke, and a handle that made Mara's teeth set. H. Decker Sheriff. Mara's phone buzzed, unknown number. She answered. Silence hissed, the kind that comes from rain and distance, then a woman's voice, unsteady but choosing to be brave. Detective Doyle, this is Mara. I found your card at the harbor. The voice said, you asked if Carly was here tonight. She was. Left around 9 with a to-go cup. She said she was headed to the mile and to keep my head down. The mile, the stretch past marker 211. Folks say you can feel it when you drive it, like it's watching back. Who is this? Mara asked, a breath, then, Olive Kincaid. I serve coffee and keep my eyes open. You think that makes me nosy, but sometimes it makes me alive. Did you see her talk to anyone before she left? A pause. Evan from Rourke's took a booth. He paid cash. He left before she did. Mara replaced the phone gently, as if it would bruise. She looked at the printed frames of the sedan by the garage, at the fog light's blind spot. Her mind tried to move too fast. She forced it slower. People helped who they thought deserved help. People hurt who they believed could afford it. Where those lines crossed, you got a town like Ashfield. Run me any calls tied to Rourke's in the last year. She told Tessa, I want every time they were dispatched as first on scene. And pull me registrations on a dark sedan late model, linked to that annex. You got it, Tessa said, but detective, be careful. Sheriff Decker doesn't like people who lift rugs. I don't like rugs that need lifting, Mara said. On her way out, she stopped by the evidence locker and slid the penny bag onto the shelf, heads up. The arresting smallness of it made her feel watched by 100 copper eyes. She thought of Carly, who gathered bakes, sale receipts, and memory cards like talismans, who had left a breadcrumb trail through the rain. She thought of a group that told itself it kept Ashfield safe and might have yanked a woman's car in the dark to keep it quiet. Outside, the rain had softened in the distance. County Road 9 stretched toward the black outline of mile 211, and the blue hour began to lift its shoulder. They called it a community forum, but Ashfield's library meeting room felt like a courtroom with worse lighting. Folding chairs made aisles. The podium's mic popped with its own nervousness. And the hand-lettered sign over the coffee urn said, "Neighbors watch together, we see more." Mara stood near the back, coat folded over her arm, and watched the faces that watched the town. Janelle Price, reporter and moderator, had the quick, efficient way of someone who had learned to keep small. Fires from turning large. We'll hear from Commissioner Rourke about the new security lighting initiative, she said. Then Sheriff Decker will update us on the rash of car thefts. Calvin Rourke smiled with the softness of a man who practiced sincerity at mirrors. Lights discourage crime. He said, "So does visibility." Neighbors Watch has been an incredible partner. He gestured to a board where photos were pinned under two headings: mess cleaned and mess prevented. Under cleaned, a garage fire, a vandalized park bench, a recovered stolen truck. Under prevented, grainy stills of teenagers cutting across lawns, a homeless man asleep in a church doorway, and a screenshot of a group text where someone wrote, "He doesn't look like he's from here." Mara watched the crowd applaud in the muted, relieved way of people who wanted reasons to trust. She scanned faces. Evan Rourke sat 2 rows back, hair damp from a shower, knuckles scraped. Sheriff Decker leaned against a wall, hand over his belt buckle, eyes moving slow and wide. Olive from the harbor slid in late and hugged the wall near an exit, expression tight. When Q&A opened, Mara stepped forward. "Detective Mara Doyle," she said, "State Police. We're looking into the crash on County Road 9, the one that took Carly Baines. If anyone has footage from dash cams or doorbells from last night, we'd appreciate copies." A rustle went through the room like wind through tall grass. Rourke was the first to speak. "We're all grieving Carly," he said. "She did so much for this town. But we shouldn't politicize a tragedy. Roads are slick. Accidents happen." Mara kept her voice polite enough to pass. The road was slick. It also appears another vehicle made contact with Carly's. Eyes closed, opened. Sheriff Decker cleared his throat. "We don't want folks drawing conclusions," he said. "Miss Baines had a habit of multitasking." Phone, papers. Olive's voice cut through the room. She had both hands on the wheel. "When I filled her cup." A laugh tried to start and died, embarrassed for itself. Janelle leaned toward the mic. "We'll collect any footage," she said with a new carefulness. Neighbors Watch exists to help the truth, not to curate it. After, in the parking lot, Mara followed Evan to his truck. "Late night?" she asked, as if it didn't matter. He flicked his eyes at her, irritation and something almost like fear vying for space. "Tow business is always late." "You were on scene fast," she said, "faster than our volunteer fire." "Your dad call you. My scanners work fine," he said. He opened his truck, then paused. "Look, detective, you come in from out of town and think you've got us figured, but Ashfield looks out for its own. So did Carly," Mara said, who looked out for her. He got in. The door closed with the finality of something heavier than a door. Sometimes, making a place safe means making hard calls. He said through the glass, "Lines get drawn. You either stand where you belong, or you get pushed back across." Did Carly get pushed? Mara asked, but he had put the truck in gear and the taillights were already smearing red in the wet. She found Janelle by the returns bin, flipping a pen in anxious figure eights. "You moderated," Mara said. "You also moderate." Janelle's mouth tilted. "You mean the group?" "Yes, it started small. Porch pirates, loose dogs. It grew fast because people liked seeing. It made them feel less alone." "Who else has admin permissions?" Mara asked. "Me, Carly, Cal, Sheriff nominally. We added him so he wouldn't feel left out." Her laugh had no humor in it. "People started sending Carly tips offline. We kept a separate folder for ones that seemed volatile." "You mean illegal," Mara said. "I mean dangerous if handled wrong." Janelle shot back. "We needed time to verify before the pylon started. Carly said the pylon was the crime that wears a badge. Where's that folder? Mara asked. Janelle looked at the ground on her home laptop. She hesitated. I can get you in. Her mom gave me the passcode for the funeral slideshow. She wouldn't want the town eating itself while we guess. The house smelled like lemon oil and rain. Carly's living room was the kind of tidy that came from habit, not fear. A calendar on the wall still carried a square around Wednesday's Neighbors Watch meeting and a sticky note that said ask about lighting grant. On the kitchen table, a coloring book lay open to a page where a cartoon fox wore a policeman's hat and smiled with all its teeth. Janelle propped the laptop open and typed. The desktop lit, bright with folders. Watch Q, grant drafts, mile to 111. Janelle clicked the last. Inside, subfolders labeled by license plates and street names. One folder name was just a question mark. Inside the question mark were scans of paper, insurance policies, property appraisals, contractor estimates for roofing and siding, a dozen PDFs stamped with the county seal. Janelle scrolled. Face going still. What am I looking at? Mara asked. Patterns. Janelle said. 3 garage fires in 6 months, all within a mile of the Rourke Annex. Payouts processed through one adjuster. City contracts steered to contractors who donate to Cal's campaigns. She clicked another file, and this, a list titled Mess. It's a spreadsheet, names in one column. In the next, Clean or Prevent. Mara looked. The names were people she'd already seen on the board at the meeting, and people she'd never seen at all. The quiet ones, the ones who kept their heads down. Most had Clean beside them. A few had Prevent in sharp caps, and next to Carly Baines. Someone had typed in a different hand, resistant, show me the most recent edits. Mara said. Janelle flipped to version history. A guest account had made the last change yesterday. ID string, H-Decker Sheriff. The room changed its temperature without the thermostat moving. Mara felt the old Chicago courtroom flicker like a reflection in glass. The moment when a story everyone believed meets the one that's true. We'll need warrants, she said, and we'll need to move fast. Because if Neighbors Watch is a funnel, it pours 2 ways. Someone's going to clean what we haven't seen yet. They left lights off as they walked back to the car. Across the street, a sedan idled. A passenger, side fog, light glowed dimmer than its twin. The engine revved. The car slid away. Mara handed Janelle her spare radio. Stay with Olive at the harbor, she said. Use the back door. Call Tessa and have her back up every file off the Neighbors Watch portal she can touch. And you. Janelle asked. Mara looked toward the shape of the Rourke Annex, and beyond it the blue slice of the mile. I'm going to pay Commissioner Rourke a neighborly visit. Commissioner Cal Rourke kept his office in a smart brick building on Main, the kind of place that smelled like static, cling suits, and framed recognition. Night left the windows as mirrors. Mara used one to watch her own face settle into the polite shape people trust. The receptionist had long gone home. The hallway lights were on motion sensors, popping awake in little startlements as she walked. She pushed into Rourke's office and found him exactly where she expected. Jacket off, tie loosened, hands on a stack of papers that no longer needed hands. He looked up and smiled the way he had at the library. Detective. To what do I owe? Your son's fog light is out, she said. The smile shaved itself thinner. You don't have a warrant. I have a question, Mara said, and a pair of eyes. Which used to be all you needed here. He leaned back, considering her as if arranging pieces on a board. What do you think you know? I think Neighbors Watch started with porch pirates and became a real-time map of who made this town comfortable and who didn't. I think some of your allies used it to decide where to steer contracts and where to yank people off the road. I think Carly Baines realized that and started keeping her own ledger. And now she's dead, he said softly, as if delivering her a conclusion that would save her time. Now she's dead, Mara agreed, but she didn't keep her ledger only to die with it. Rourke stood and took a slow turn around the desk, not so much circling her as orbiting the idea of her. You moved here to escape noise, he said, but noise follows people who hear it. Ashfield is a good place, detective. It stays good because we keep the edges trimmed. Carly wanted to turn every hedge into a wilderness. Do you like wilderness? I like laws. Mara said, they work if you do. You think the sheriff will choose you over me? His voice made the question sound like pity. He hunts on my land. His grandkids play on fields I built. The people who write the checks write the stories. Janelle writes the stories, but she knows where her ad revenue comes from. Janelle just sent the first story, Mara said, because Tessa had texted the moment the upload finished. Check the page, Tessa wrote, and Janelle's article had gone live like a thrown switch. Neighbors watch, dark data. How a town kept score. The servers would wheeze under the load, the comments would froth. But the thing about light is once it pours out, you can't get it back into the bulb. Rourke's phone buzzed on his desk, and then again, angry bees in a wood box. His jaw tightened. You just turned neighbors on each other, he said. You made them afraid. I showed them what they were already doing. Mara said. She stepped closer to the desk. Where were you last night at 9:30? Home, he said, watching the game with Evan. Evan's truck left your house at 9:10. She said. Olive Kincaid poured him coffee at 9:20. Carly left at 9:28. By 9:35, she was upside down on County Road 9, and Evan was first on scene. He's either the best volunteer in Ohio, or he knew where to be. You're threading a story and hoping it holds, he said, but he picked up his jacket, which meant part of him had already rehearsed the leaving. Mara heard the elevator ding down the hall, heavy steps. Sheriff Decker entered without knocking, hat in hand, face arranged for cameras. Evening, Commissioner, he said. He nodded at Mara. Detective. Sheriff, Mara said. I was just asking about your edits to a certain spreadsheet. He tucked his hat under his arm, blank surprise performed with decades of practice. Now why would I touch a community list? Because it told you where to patrol, she said, and where not to. He opened his mouth. He did not manage a sound before the hallway lit again with footsteps, quicker this time. Janelle appeared in the doorway, breathless, hair beaded with rain. We've got a problem, she said. Evan's towing the Gates warehouse right now. The warehouse isn't a car. Rourke snapped. Funny thing. Janelle shot back. He's towing the trucks parked outside, the ones loaded with the municipal light fixtures you bought. She looked at Mara. Olive heard it on the scanner. There's a fire, reported at the South Bay on an anonymous call. Insurance on the warehouse went up last week. I know because I wrote the business profile. The pay out would cover the value of any lost fixtures. Which would be wild, considering they'd already be on Evan's flatbeds. Rourke moved past them in a rush that wasn't elegant. Decker followed, cursing softly in a voice that made its own weather. Mara took the stairs 2 at a time. The warehouse sat low and wide by the river, old brick patched, with newer panels that never quite matched. As Mara pulled up, the world leaned into chaos. Sirens, the lick of orange behind smoked windows, and the insect whine of a drone that buzzed like a dangerous thought over the lot. 2 Rourke flatbeds were already bumping toward the gate, each stacked with crates strapped in blue webbing. Evan stood by the hitch of the second, jaw set, rain shining on his cheeks like sweat. Mara stepped in front of the flatbed before it could clear the gate, shut it down. She called to the driver, hand up. The driver hesitated. Rourke stormed from his SUV. Out of the way, he shouted, public safety, public theft. Janelle said, camera in hand, live, stream icon burning in its corner, say hi to your constituents. Decker arrived, eyes taking in the fire, the trucks, the faces. He saw the live feed and changed directions mid-step, angling his body toward the side that smiled better. Let's coordinate, he said. Commissioner, you can't move city property without a release. It's my contract. Rourke said, it's all going to burn. Only if someone lets it. Olive's voice came from the loading dock, where she stood with a fire extinguisher and a stubbornness that looked like prayer. She had the dock door partway up. Smoke pried at the gap like fingers. Sprinklers were cut, she said, but we caught it early. Mara's phone vibrated. Tessa again, drone feed online, recording. Mara glanced up. The drone hung perfectly legal above. Public right-of-way, its camera eye unblinking. We've got eyes on this. She said to everyone and no one, Mr. Rourke, step away from the vehicle. Evan, hands where I can see them. Evan's gaze flicked to his father, back to Mara. His shoulders dropped half an inch. For a second, he looked 12, caught at the boundary between a dare and a rule. Then he lifted his hands, palms out. Dad, he said quietly, we can't. We can and we will. Rourke snapped. You think they'll save us when the lights go off. You think they understand what it takes to keep a town like this from rotting. What it takes, Mara said, is not running people off roads and staging fires. The fire department poured in, hoses shouldering through the gate like tamed rivers. A captain shouted orders. The warehouse coughed smoke and then, grudgingly, steam. The orange retreated. Olive sank to a sit-on. Duck extinguisher between her knees, laughing the shaky laugh relief rings from people. Sheriff Decker made his choice in public because the camera forced him to. Commissioner Rourke, he said, voice carrying, I'm going to ask you to remain for questioning. He looked at Mara. Detective, you want to take lead? I do, she said, and heard in her own voice a steadiness that felt earned. She turned to Evan. You're being detained, not arrested. Not yet. But if you reach for your keys, I'll consider it uncooperative. He nodded once, jaw muscle ticking. The cleanup took hours. In that time, Tessa texted 3 more times, pulled admin logs. Sheriff edited the mesh sheet twice. Janelle's article hit 20,000 views. Someone posted a screenshot of Cal's emails with the adjuster. The truth was messy and fast when it finally arrived. It scattered like nails from a dropped bucket, and everyone stepped carefully because everyone liked their tires intact. Dawn came into the river valley pale and chalky. The fire captain signed forms with a soot-streaked hand. Olive poured coffee from a thermos, distributing cups with the ritual gravity of communion. For what it's worth, she told Mara, Carly always said the light wins if you give it a way in. Mara looked at the warehouse, at the flatbeds, at a town that had tried to outsource its conscience and found the bill too high. She thought of Chicago, of courtrooms, of the way stories end and begin. She thought of a penny in a baggy heads up, copper bright in a dark pocket. Rourke watched the sun lift and decided to talk. People like him always did when they realized the room had changed its temperature. We didn't kill her. He said to Mara, voice flat, we just wanted to scare her, keep her from making something out of a tool. It was a bump, that's all. She overcorrected. Your son bumped her, Mara said, because you told him to. His face showed her a flicker of surprise that she would state it so simply. You'll ruin us. He said, you'll think you fixed something. I'll think we told the truth out loud, she said, and I'll hope the town can stand to hear it. By noon, Decker had surrendered his badge with a practiced air of martyrdom. He would claim he'd only ever tried to keep the peace. Janelle would publish text threads where his peace looked like instructions. Evan would make a deal that kept him out of prison and in therapy, and left a scar you couldn't see unless he turned his head just so. Cal Rourke would find the edges of a cell smaller than his town's and learn the exact measurements of the light that crept through its window. At Carly's funeral, the neighbor's watch sign came down from the library. A new one went up a week later, handwritten, taped crooked. We watch out for each other, not on each other. Olive made the coffee. People sat closer than they had before. Sometimes they looked toward the door as if expecting something terrible. Sometimes something good arrived instead. On a late afternoon, when the sky colored itself the blue that gave the hour its name, Mara drove County Road 9 alone. The guardrail wore its scar. The ditch had surrendered the last bits of mug to a volunteer who glued them and gave the harbor a new old cup. At mile 211, she pulled onto the shoulder and rolled the penny between her fingers before setting it heads up on the dash. She sat listening to the ticking engine and the whisper of wind along the cattails. The road went where roads go, forward, backward, away. She thought of Carly's tiny metal charm with coordinates, how some places insist you remember exactly where you were when it mattered. She thought of her own coordinates, shifting since Chicago, settling here a little more. When she pulled back onto the asphalt, the Charger's tires hummed a line that sounded almost like a promise. Not that the town would be quiet. Nothing worth saving is silent, but that when the noise returned, and there would be enough people willing to hear it and decide not to obey. The blue hour thinned. Ashfield woke into a day that had the dignity of having survived the night, and somewhere in a drawer of a house that now kept its doors unlocked, way it once kept them locked, a folder labeled Mile 211 slept, ready to be opened if anyone forgot how the light gets in.